Hey everybody, just wanted to give an update on the Caddy swap. We're actually moving along pretty good. We had a one slight / major setback. After we had put the pan in, it was good for about 8 months. Put it in the car, bolted everything up, torqued the transmission tunnel, or the bell housing and everything, seemed fine. Put the starter in, everything was good, and then came in one day and it had a hairline crack that ran pretty much from left to right, so it split the pan in half. I'm assuming there was internal stresses somewhere, and then the hot and cold of going in and out of the garage and turning the heat on, turning the heat off. So something I wasn't really expecting, because the temperature was fairly consistent up at the factory where we made the pan. So that's gonna be fun to replace. So I'm gonna have to put this thing up on the lift, drop the pan, probably lift the motor and support the motor, somehow finagle removing the pickup tube because it goes from the front of the engine to the back, and hopefully I can get it out and come down and go past the transmission pan and bell housing. I don't know if it's gonna work. I might just have to take the whole entire drivetrain out. I really don't want to do that because of how far I've gotten with it. I'm down to the last couple things. I mean, the wiring's pretty much nailed down. I've got one connector to make, and the intercooler piping is really my biggest hang up. So, it's just kind of a, man, I had a spare pan fixed. This was version 1, so I had this one repaired. This one cracked before, but this was a jig plated one, so it is pretty straight. It does have a warp to it because it's cast aluminum, so you do any sort of welding to it, it's gonna warp. So I don't know, just kind of a setback, kind of lost motivation on it, but we're crawling to the finish line here. I mean, we're close to being able to start the engine, so that's good. I mean, I technically could put oil and start it now, but it will seep out of that crack over time. So I want to make sure, and it's a very, very slight hairline crack, so it'd probably be okay for a little while, but I just don't want to have to, I don't want to risk it cracking fully and then emptying the contents of the pan. So just gonna have to go through and do it correctly, replace the pan, just do it. I'm just a little nervous because this pan is built the exact same way, cut the same way, has all the same kind of stuff done to it. So I just hope that this pan doesn't crack. The only difference was this one was not, we tried to anneal the other pan using a torch, and I think that's where some of the brittleness came from. So this pan has a slight warp to it, but it has not been annealed. So maybe it won't crack, we'll see. I don't know. I really don't want to make a third oil pan for this car. So for right now, I'm gonna keep going. I've got some wiring to finish up, but yeah, it's looking pretty good. And then I've also had to switch to a 2006 Corvette C6 pedal, not the C7, but so I'm gonna have to modify that to make it work in the inside of the car. So let me show you what that's all about. So this is the Corvette pedal that I need to make work because this has the accelerator positioning on it. This is the old pedal, which is hinged at the floor. So I would like to keep the old looking pedal, but I don't see that being, without making some crazy stuff to adapt it to this. I mean, I don't really care. It's not that big of a deal. It's just kind of cool to see, both pedals. But I should be able to mount this guy up on the firewall if I make a standoff, and then it'll wind up in probably a very similar spot. So, I mean, I don't mind. It looks like the old Chevy truck pedals. They really didn't change much. So, yeah, we're gonna have to get this thing connected because without it, the engine will not start. It needs this connector. So, but yeah, we're gonna keep rolling with that. Hopefully get this thing all figured out, and then yeah, that's the bulk of the electronics. Everything's been mounted, everything's done. So the ECU wound up in a pretty good spot. I was able to fish it and put it down here. This will go on the radiator shroud when it's installed. But yeah, it's right down in there. The harness runs along here. I've just set these up with Deutsch connectors, so I'm gonna run these. This is like cruise control, and then some other controls like the wait to start light for the diesel, I think water and fuel, and oil pressure switch, I believe. And the air conditioning is all set, so should work out pretty good. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep plugging along. I made this connector here. on the car side of things, so I should be able to have some decent connectivity. And that's the thing, is like, I really didn't want to hard splice into the car. I don't know why, because I don't see this engine coming out anytime soon. But I don't know. I'm always just a freak when it comes to, oh, but what if I want to make the car original someday? Nobody will. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to put an Oldsmobile diesel back in this thing. I don't know. I'm going to make a connector here, and then that connector will go and split off to the other two that are over there. And it's just like just a patch cable, but I don't know. That's just me. Just wanted to do it and do it right, so it can be removed and things can be added to it, I guess. And it's just a lot cleaner looking, so. But yeah, otherwise, it's all in there. It all sort of fits. My only problem is this guy. I tried to cut out a hole, but it still doesn't hit. It still hits, so I'm gonna have to probably cut a hole in the hood for the alternator, cut a hole in the hood for the AC pump, because it's gonna have all the lines on it. So, I don't know. Some fabrication in the near future, also all the intercooler lines and piping. So that's gonna be the next project. But I even got my block heater all set up, so that should work out pretty nice. And yeah, transmission cross members all done, and everything's lined up. So build the drive shafts, get the intercooler in, do the intercooler piping, and she's ready for launch. So that's where we're at. So this is gonna be, see, this part is always, I think, in my opinion, the worst, where it's like, it's a slow crawl to the end. There's a lot of work to do, but it's really not a ton of work. Like, the fun stuff has been done. The engine's in the car. The fab work to get the engine in the car is done. So now it's fitting everything else. So this is what takes the most time. This is where a lot of people lose motivation. This is where I have always historically lost motivation. So just gonna try and keep it going, kind of keep the ideas flowing. And I just want to get this thing done. It's been sitting on jack stands for 3 years. I saw a Snapchat memory of when the engine that was in this car died, and then it sat outside for about a year. So, and then after that, it was in our shop. So now I just want it done. Just want it done. This dream has been going on for a while. It's so close. I mean, look, it looks good in there. Like, it's a good fit. I'm just gonna have to cut a hole in the hood. And then what I'll probably wind up doing, so I've been looking for hood scoops, and if anybody has any recommendations, I'm open to listening to it. But I believe it was the Plymouth Satellite and some of the older Buicks, they had independent scoops that were about the length of the cowl of the hood, and they were only about an inch and a half, 2 inches tall. And they went across the front, and they were like, they were very rectangular, very square, they just look slick on a big square car, because that's what it was in the 70s. So if I can get a fiberglass replica of like a Plymouth GTX scoop for, you know, the individual side, that's probably the direction that I'll go. I'll cut the hole for the alternator, cut everything else. I'm probably not going to turn it into an air intake, like active air intake, because I'll probably wind up putting the air cleaner probably somewhere down here. But I guess I could, you know, if the scoop comes in and it's on each half of the hood, leave the center supports and leave some of the inner hood bracing and only cut the skin, then the hood won't get wobbly, because that's one of the big concerns that I've had. It's because this hood is so massive. You take out any support, you go to close the hood, it's gonna fold in half. And that's what happens to a lot of the square body truck hoods. There's just not enough support, even from the factory. So what I wanna do is just I wanna find a scoop that'll work on this angle of the hood and is suitable for the style of the car, because Cadillacs shouldn't really have hood scoops, and it's really not a sporty looking car. It's just a big luxury car. So I want to find something that isn't too obnoxious. I don't want to put some AutoZone stick-on scoops on it. I mean, for the short term, that's maybe what I'll do, but it's just finding something to work with this style of car is tough, because it's not really supposed to be a race car. So, and I don't want it to be a race car. That's not my intent. I just want it to look like you open the hood and that's the engine that it came with. And, you know, I don't want any performance parts. I've had to do a few just to make things simpler, to get rid of the EGR and get, you know, to make the up pipes fit and everything. So like, but I'd rather just use factory equipment. You know, some guys, they go crazy. They build this crazy studded Duramax, and they run, you know, they run propane injection and this, that, and the other, and they're snapping crankshafts. I just want it to run. That's it. I just wanted to make the power that it makes stock, and this thing will be 2 or 3 times as fast as it ever has been, even with the big block. So if I can make 650, 700 foot-pounds of torque, I'd be totally happy, because it's going to twist the drive shaft, it's going to blow out the rear end. Like, I just want it to run. I want it to be reliable. I want to have fun with the car, and it's still going to be fast as hell. So I don't need to go crazy. You know, people were roasting me for putting a used, greasy 350,000 mile engine in. I don't care. It's what I want. It's a factory engine. It runs well. The thing ran great. So it's going to continue to run great. You know, it's got the stock head gasket. It's got 350,000 miles on it. It'll be fine, as long as you don't crank it up. So maybe in the future I'll build another engine for it, but this one's going to stay in its stock form, and I'm totally cool with that, because that was my intent. So that's what I'm up to. Didn't mean to go on a total rant, but I think it'll be a really cool car when it's done. Everything will work. The Hydro Boost will work. The cruise control will work. I was able to get the pinouts and all the stuff to make the factory cruise control on the column work with this ECU and TCM. So the only thing I got to figure out is how to get the speedometer to work with the electronic 4L80 transmission, because it doesn't have the square shaft output like a lot of the older transmissions do. So Dakota Digital makes a conversion, like a pulse width modulation conversion. So essentially it takes the input from, or it takes the output of the pulse width from the transmission and the speed sensors, and it just turns a DC brushed motor, and you can adjust the speed and you can set it up for your tire size. So I'll probably get one of those that just goes in line, and then I can use my factory speedometer, because I don't want to put I just want all the gauges to work, want all the lights to work. You know, I mean, even the check engine light will work, the wait to start lamp will work, the cruise control lights will work, everything's going to work. So that's kind of my pet peeve, because when I built my station wagon, I didn't care to set up any of that stuff. You know, I was just going to remove it if it became a problem. But something was lost in that, like having all those lights work and everything work properly when you put the key in and it does the correct sounds and this, that, and the other thing. So I just want everything to work. I want the engine and the car to be in harmony, and I just want it to be cool, because I haven't seen one that's done like this. So, you know, I've seen a couple of people, they build race cars with their Duramaxes, which is awesome. I'd love to do one of those one day, but I want this to be a completely factory performing vehicle. So I think it'd just be hilarious to put some of the strap-on tow mirrors and start pulling an enclosed trailer with it. So I'm gonna keep going on this thing. I'm gonna keep you updated as best as I can, and show you where we're at. Hopefully it'll be on the road in the next couple months here. So we'll see you then.